Hello and welcome to CXQA Live, the home of the agent-centric contact center philosophy. Every week we talk about how agents with the right training, tools, and connection with your business will be a revenue growth and protection center for your business or brand. It'll be the best diagnostic tool that you could possibly have for your business. They're going to ensure that your customers are satisfied and connected. They're going to produce more and better work, and they're going to want to stick around and be a part of the long-term success of your business. Now, today on the show, we have joining us Sheri Kendall, one of my very favorites. So she's our resident training expert, and we're going to crack open a new discussion topic together today. But Sheri, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way about you and your team. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Last week, Stacy Sherman was on the show with me, and we were discussing agent value in the CX marketplace, which is an interesting topic. And there's lots of directions that conversation did go and could have gone. One of the more interesting things that kind of came up along the way was the topic that you and I were already planning for today. And really, it's the future of agents within the industry and how that ties into training and being prepared for that new future that is coming, that is happening. Not just coming, it's happening. It's already happening, right? The implementation of artificial intelligence is a huge part of this. But in the contact center, as the role of the agent is evolving, training must be ahead, really, in order to keep things on track. So tell me, how do you see all this unfolding, Sheri?
Well, for training, AI is decreasing the amount of time that trainers have to spend in development. And so what that means is learning and development teams can spend more time with hands-on coaching. And what we know about learning and development today, it's not 120 slides. Please don't do that in a room and putting people into production, right? It's about coaching, introducing people to knowledge, introducing them to your system. So where do you find that knowledge in the flow of work? Because the idea that we can memorize is antiquated. It's not accurate. We need to know how to search your systems and find that information. And then we need to have real-time coaching. And so when we have less time in development, we have more time for coaching and really developing people. So that's one way. I met with a director of customer service yesterday, really picked his brain on a number of things that he's working on. And he showed me a tool that's still in beta, but it is an AI tool that lives in Slack that assists folks in writing emails. And so that also cuts down on some of the time, right, to in development, but offers you that opportunity to teach agents how to edit, how to personalize, how to really create an incredible experience for that customer within an email that is assisted by AI. And then I know there are tools out there that are simulating customers. And so that tool could be, you have an AI tool that is acting as a customer, your agents interacting with that customer, and then transcripts are sent. So managers can QA in real time and really provide specific development plans, both to new hires and throughout their tenure.
Yeah, I may know a little something about that. If that sounds intriguing to anyone, feel free to shoot me a message. But point being, really, what you're saying, what you're seeing is that the technology that's available is already changing what is required of training, right?
Yes.
It's already changing the basics of how to onboard and train a new agent, and it's putting new sort of remedial or new skill trainings kind of in front of the training organization to figure out how to equip agents to use these tools in the quest for, more efficiency, more quality.
Correct. And it's also, as a learning and development leader, it's requiring me to dig in there. I need to figure out what's going on with AI, how to use Chat GPT, what does a prompt mean, all these things, right? And I have been doing that and have been learning a lot of things, but it means that I need to make sure my team is ready for that as well. And they're ready. They understand what how to use AI to be effective in their role, and then how to support their new hires and tenured agents with AI as well. So it's exciting. It's a new thing for us to put into our toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's almost a necessity to have
Hmm.
that attitude, to see the possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, with any technology, there's always negative unintended consequences, right? And
Hmm.
that's just the reality. We talk about that on the show all the time. But really, the rubber meets the road when you are responsible in your job as a learning and development leader to equip a human to
Hmm.
use this new kind of technology.
Yes.
I'm thinking, just myself, right? Like, um, there's all this buzz in the society. There's been Senate hearings. There's, a lot of people that are genuinely concerned about some of the negative things that can happen if AI runs amok and whatnot, right?
Hmm.
However, I think um, when you're talking about onboarding and training new agents, those things aren't really what's in view, except that might be one of the background thought processes, or
Hmm.
or something that's going on inside of the mind of the new agent. And it's really your job to say, okay, this is a tool. At the end of the
Yes.
day, this is a tool, and this is how it's to be used. And there's just new rules that you have to learn, and that training folks across the industry are having to learn about how it's supposed to work, and how to train people on it.
Yes, and as I'm listening to you and thinking, it's also going to be important that training works in partnership with recruiting, right? As always. But what I hear from a lot of folks, especially frontline, is my job's going away. My job's going away. I
Mm.
need to find something else to do. And as we all know, it's difficult to recruit people into the fabulous world, and I mean that fabulous world of customer
Mhm.
service. Anyone that knows me knows I my passion for that. And so it will require that we understand how to speak to it as well, to both recruit and retain agents. I think it's an exciting time because I see the role changing, and more opportunities that weren't there before. All the way from IKEA, who figured out, wait a minute, we're going to need less agents. How can we optimize? How can we keep folks? And so while they didn't necessarily train them in the fine art of AI, they are now design consultants. So I'll tell you, I wanted to call IKEA before this session to get a sense of how it's working. I didn't have time, but I'll tell you, that's the first place I'm going when I need a piece of furniture, just because now I know that when I call their agents, I'm going to have somebody that's ready and able to assist me in finding that perfect piece for my home. Whereas other organizations, I would call service and only be able to change a shipping address or get tracking information, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's how can we change the role? And I guess the question really is, what are those new roles that we're going to see for agents? And the customer service director I spoke with yesterday, well, he has, I don't know if we want to say luxury, but he has the opportunity to design and manage his bots.
Mm.
However, he's found very quickly he needs to offload some of that work. He needs to reassign it. He has a lot on his plate, as we can imagine. I did say director, he's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so he has somebody that is pulling reports from his CRM and reviewing the accuracy of the bots and revising those. This is a person that's a master at tickets. So he is very familiar with their skill set and thinking through, how can I use that skill set in this new world of AI? So it's going to require leadership all across the center, all across customer service, to think through, get away from that. This is going to be a reduction in workforce. Oh my gosh, we're going to lose people. Oh my, this is so scary. Let's stop those conversations. Let's start having conversations about, this is incredible. This is a new world. How can we maximize this agent role? What other careers can we offer them in this space? I mean, it really is an exciting time.
It is. It is. And I think what I'm hearing in your voice is not a denial of some of the negative that might be attached to it, but more of the fact that there are lots of opportunities embedded within this shift. And I'm going to go out on a limb And I'm just going to say that there are some people that are working in customer service that aren't a great fit for customer service work. I'm just going to go out on a limb.
You're correct. They should find other positions.
Right. There may be better places for them to make a living in the economy. And so I think in some ways the dynamic nature of customer service work, especially in some verticals, some industries where you have kind of difficult policies for customers to accept. You may have a high empathy need in that customer service position, and oftentimes you find people working in those roles that maybe aren't a great fit. So I would argue that this is an opportunity in a lot of ways, maybe some of the ways that we're not thinking about, to make customer service better for the customer, to maybe refine those who are working in the space to be more aligned with those who should be working in the space. And part of that is this kind of pivot, right? This pivot in the types of roles that will be available in the space, specifically managing the bots,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So, where are you seeing that? We're really just at the very front end of that, with all these new roles. But I mean, organizations really kind of need to start thinking this way, to be preemptive, to start thinking about how the labor shift will be an opportunity rather than just, oh, we turned the bots on and the humans off, right?
Right. No, I didn't think it was that simple. And when I spoke with the director of customer service yesterday, he reminded me it is not that simple. It is not that simple by any stretch of the imagination. He said the first key for him and anybody is documentation. If your documentation is not accurate, and he reminded me, address the needs of everyone, not just one customer, then your bots are they're only as effective as what the information you feed them. So you have to start there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also reminded me the power is in reporting. If you're not receiving, what kind of reports are you receiving from your CRM? Because you have to be able to know, are we holding them hostage with a certain workflow? What are those contact drivers? Is our information accurate? We have to QA the bot, right?
Well, yeah, and to actually connect the outcomes the customer is having with the bot to what
Yes.
you want the bot to do actually does require a human to be involved.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Right.
does.
So, I mean, the solutions that are facing the market right now are certainly a long way away from creating customer service content. They're only operating based on how they're trained, and then they need to be regularly massaged and worked with and trained based on what's actually happening, and tweaked. So, I mean, you mentioned the designer role earlier. I'm thinking about the bot QA role, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the role of constant refinement within the workflows that the bot's engaged in. And then there's the ability to get the bots to actually talk to the other tech, right? So there's a bunch of things out there. And what role do you see the training organization actually having in this transition?
Um, oh, I believe it's a partnership. And while I'm just scratching the surface, I see that training needs to be more involved in knowledge management. We've known that in my industry for a long time, and I don't necessarily always see that in contact centers or customer service. Seems to be two different departments that don't always speak to each other very well. Um, the learning and development is really, as I mentioned, it's about knowing where your knowledge is and how to search it, and making sure that knowledge is accurate, and it's available at the appropriate time in that flow of work. So we should really be working together with QA as well, making sure that we understand what our customers are asking, and recognizing when we should step in and what does that look like. So those are the two things that jump to the top of my head, but I know I'm going to find more as I move through this. This is really the focus of my work right now.
Well, understandably, but I think it's just from my perspective, training the training team, the training expert, the people who have to know the business and the ability to teach people in concert well enough to actually teach people how to understand their role in the business are
Yes.
already in a very central location, if you will, from multiple departments. They understand a lot of things about a lot of parts of the company.
Hmm.
And so folks like yourself who are experts in that process of training really already, whether they're seen that way or not, are kind of a glue point for the multiple diverse parts of the company coming together.
Hmm.
And so I think from that standpoint alone, it's a really unique opportunity to be ahead of the game, right? To maybe see the open door to grow the importance and centrality functionally of the training folks in the CX organization. Because as you said, it's not always seen the way that it really is by those in leadership.
Yeah, I think the worst thing training and development could do right now is wait to be told what to do.
Mm.
We need to be at the front end. So as I'm doing, right? It's interesting. I found out about Chat GPT when I was at my son's auto body shop. He built a new business for himself during the pandemic. A little proud mom moment there, if I may.
Yeah.
And he writing isn't his thing. And so he's like, look at this tool I found, Mom. I was like, oh my gosh. How can I use that in my life? And so I started playing around with it. Besides bragging about my son, my point is everyone is starting to really embrace and understand what the power of this tool, and learning and development needs to get on that bandwagon. We should not be waiting, as I said, for our organizations to tell us how they want us to use it. We should be figuring that out and bringing those ideas to our seat at the table. They're not all going to be right, but learning and development professionals, we know that we get it wrong. We fail forward. We should all be failing forward, right? That's how we move forward. So if someone was asking me for advice in learning and development in this space, that's what I would say is after this webinar, start, just get out there, read some blogs, join a course. I know edX and I think Coursera, a number of wonderful online platforms have introductory courses. Become familiar with it, play around, and figure out how it makes sense in your world.
Yeah, I mean, because change has never happened more quickly than it's happening now.
No,
And
it's
that's
lightning.
society wide, by the way, globally. But when we talk about the way that customer experience and customer service is being delivered today versus 3 months ago, 6 months ago,
Mhm.
6 months ago, we probably saw some overwhelming AI things coming. But I feel like the thought process now has to be maybe thinking 3 or 6 months ahead, not just to the technology, but to the role that the technology will allow the training folks to play in the organization as a whole. And I think your advice is really good, um, to bring that to the forefront. One other thing that I wanted to ask you about, because we've been talking about this for a few weeks, you and I,
Yeah.
and I think that there are some situations that companies think, kind of like what I was saying earlier, that we can just switch from one to the other. Like we're just going to go away from our labor force and just get the AI to solve all of our labor cost problems, and it's just going to be, the push of a button. I think we all know that's absurd. That's a really bad idea, right? We've already talked about that. But what are some ways, in your viewpoint, that the training organization, the training leaders, can help maybe the other leaders in the CX organization or the company as a whole to be thinking about the human impact and the kinds of transitions that are coming?
Um, Great question as always. So, having that seat at the table is key, right? Making sure that you're speaking to your leaders. Training should have a pulse on the business and really understand what those contact drivers are, and have an understanding of where we can add efficiency. So when does it make sense? So, for instance, I was just finishing up a consulting gig, and they were thinking adding AI and thinking through their portal. And I said, why are we using agents' time to change a shipping address? That that let's look at how much that costs you. And so I would not have had that insight if I wasn't so involved in creating their onboarding training. So making sure that you're having those conversations and then offering your services. Learning and development is not just bringing people into a classroom. We left that decades ago. We're partners. We're true partners in the development of your workforce. And that means a lot of things, right? It can mean job aids. It can be how do we get access to knowledge in the flow of work, coaching, development, all sorts of things that we can assist with. So in order to be effective in the transition is perhaps your leadership team needs to be reminded that we are that partner. And we are here to partner with you in that way. So make sure you're bringing your learning and development folks out of the classroom, because we are effective in many, all across the organization. And I have yet to meet a learning and development true professional that would not be interested in that work.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really great career advice out there, but the best career advice I've ever heard is always be helpful to your organization.
Yes, yes.
It's almost like common sense beyond the point of what you'd think you'd have to say, but and obviously there's a lot of dynamics there. It could be taken advantage of, whatever. But the moment that you step up to fill a gap is a moment for your career to grow, right?
Yes.
It's a moment for you to help your organization grow. And if things are working as they're supposed to, that is recognized, that is appreciated, that is something that helps everybody to grow, helps the customers to experience better things, and eventually, the dynamics with this opportunity are really, 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 really exciting for the whole organization. And this is why you and I started talking about this, because of the unique opportunities that it presents. Now, we did get a great question from our friend Dan in the chat, and I'm just going to read Dan's question out loud. So, as personal AI assistants are likely not too far away, any thoughts on prepping contact centers to have bots that are interacting with other bots? Where you've got the customer or brand bot and the personal bot doing business to take care of the customer's needs without actually having a human involved in the interaction on either side. And where do you see the role of agents in that environment?
Well, you and I just started talking about that this morning, Rob. So I wish I had a very robust answer. When Rob has me back, I will. But what I can say is I do see a future, right, in which that will happen. And it would increase our efficiency and our effectiveness if our documentation and our systems are accurate enough to make sure that works effectively. What we have to get away from, or what we have to remember, is we do not want to hold customers hostage when they need a human. There are things that we need a human for. And so figuring out how to make sure those systems recognize when that is the case will be key. But I do see a future in which bots will help bots. I don't see a future where there are absolutely no humans. There are too many strange things that happen in the world that we need a human for. And there are sometimes we just need that connection. We need that empathy. We need someone to hear us and understand. So that's the other thing that the director I was speaking with yesterday said, is we have to be able to recognize when to bring a human in. So short answer is yes, I do believe bots will work with bots. Long answer, tune in about 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks, and we'll have a robust answer for you.
Well, we'll just go ahead and get you on the schedule here for a few weeks, and then you'll have an assignment, right?
Yes.
But I'm just thinking about the dynamic where the accuracy of the personal assistant in representing what the customer actually wants to happen in the interaction is maybe not right. And so you've got a bot that's asking for something either that isn't what the customer wants to begin with, or something that is against the company's policies, or that causes some kind of problem that the bot doesn't understand on the personal side, and then you've got to train that company bot
Mm-hmm.
to diagnose the implications of the request. And I'm just thinking that's a whole nother layer of,
Yes.
and what if that company bot doesn't get that correctly? Somebody's got to catch that before, in a banking scenario, the wrong amount of money is deposited to an account or transferred, or what the auto voice attendant thought I said to go get done with my return, it actually canceled the order altogether, rather than actually having it come back to me. And
Mhm.
there's all these little variables that I think once we kind of look under the hood, all the things. Justin has great question. Will the bots get into bot small talk? I don't know. I don't know.
That's
Well,
funny
well,
because I was just going to call you out, Justin,
mm,
because I was thinking, first of all, if you want to know anything about metrics or anything contact center, Justin's your guy. But I was just thinking about metrics and reporting, and one of the things that the director and I talked about yesterday is we need to understand, we need to have a report on customer churn. We need to know when customers are leaving or if they're leaving, because he reminded me that they will just leave. If you're holding them hostage, or your bot is not serving their needs, there are at least 12,000 other providers out there doing what you're doing, right? And so they'll just go. Um, I live in a small town and only have two internet providers, and the internet provider I have was, their bot would not let me out, and my question was not being answered. I work at home. This is not a luxury for me, and I'll tell you what, I was ready to go. Even though I only had one other place to go. So we want to make sure that we're getting accurate reporting and we're recognizing when we're not serving the customer's needs.
100%. Our friend Shafiq, whose question last week was right in the pickle barrel of what we're talking about today. Glad to have you back with us, Shafiq. He asks, from an education standpoint, should contact centers provide training to the agents on what AI is, what automation is, kind of what the general automation process and approach looks like, and maybe some of
Mhm.
the basics of automation? Maybe you could just chat about that for a minute.
Oh my gosh, I'm designing it in my head now.
I
Yes.
know, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm writing that this week. Yes, yes. Whew. First of all, your agent should know all of the tools available, right? They need to know your business in order to support your business.
Yeah.
That would also help. Oh my gosh, I wish we had 30 more minutes. That would also help with them to understand how it's a tool and it's not coming to take their job. So, and it would prepare them for any of those career paths that we're talking about that are going to start coming to fruition. Oh my gosh, yes, that's the best question ever. Oh boy, I have
So
another assignment this week.
maybe that's half of another episode.
Yes.
So I mean, I think the answer is clearly yes. And then how to do it, and building that into sort of basics of the underground background training is just so the light bulbs are coming on for you. I can see it. I don't know how many times the guest takes notes and gets completely lit up in the face. But like it's conversations like this that are genuinely helpful,
Mhm.
for all of us, and why we do this show, right?
Yes.
uh, Dave asked an interesting question too. What happens when one bot can't fulfill its directive because the other bot won't let it based on policies? Are they
Yeah.
just going to fight? Are they like what? How do they decide? We're
Yeah.
not going to. One of us has to go back to its master and say I failed, right?
Yes.
And it's going to be the personal one if the company brand bot is programmed and you know trained correctly. And I think that's an interesting scenario. And thinking about like, so then does the person just get upset and call in anyway? Like like what?
And
I
so
have
then you
questions.
Oh, I didn't mean to interject there, Rob, but
No, you're
what
fine.
what
Go
you
ahead.
brought up for me is then you have an upset customer that is now the responsibility of that live agent. So again, we're going back to what we've talked about for decades is strong soft skills. So you have to have the right person in that role. It can't, it can't be somebody that is incapable of de-escalating and showing empathy, because they've been arguing with the bot. Now they're really upset.
Now they're really upset.
Yep.
Their bot came back and said, I can't get you what you want.
Yeah.
Or they were interacting with the bot and had a bad experience. And now we have another layer of frustration and things that are going on. So we've had so much in this conversation already that obviously is promoting more conversation and more dialogue. I think when we are being real, agents aren't going away. The role of agents is going to change and evolve. The ability for agents to see their career in a different light and to be upskilled and trained and strategically placed in a position to help this transition be a good one for customers, for agents, for companies. A lot of that's going to be on the hands and in the responsibility of the training organization, which is why I got a feeling you're going to be back on the show quite a bit in the coming weeks. I mean, I think we've already planned like 2.25 episodes just during this episode. So guys, we're going to go ahead and close out the main session. We are going to jump over into the discussion table. So once I push the big red button and we end the session, would love for you to jump over there with us, and Sheri and I will be there and we can talk more about whatever's on your minds. Sheri, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate you.
Anytime.
All right. We're going to say goodbye for now. Everybody have a great Tuesday and make your world a better place wherever you are.